These are the growing tubes for the next hydroponic system that I am building. I like to work with things that I can find off the shelf in my local stores, and this is an example of that. This is ABS pipe with a 3-inch inside diameter. You may be aware that ABS pipe is commonly used for sewers, so your reaction to this might be, ew, sewer pipe. But I have done some research on this, and I have found that ABS plastic is actually one of the most stable plastics there is. And it is so stable that it is used in medical equipment. And at the same time, my research indicates that the PVC tubing that is commonly used for these things may actually leach more chemicals into the water than the ABS pipe will. You may be having a moment of caution if you know that your house has PVC pipes, because you may be thinking that just because they're used in the potable water, they're safe. But I would suggest that in fact they're used because they're cheaper than copper. One of the main things about this ABS piping that it is black, so that light will not get through it, and this will tend to reduce the growth of algae in the system, which can be a problem. Also, this tubing is quite thick and will probably be easier to support than PVC pipe, which is often much thinner than this. When I bought this pipe, I paid about $16 for each of these 5-foot sections, and as I was pulling out the pipe, I noticed that I could buy 10-foot sections for only a few dollars more. Now, this particular set of pipes is going to be used for a prototype system that is intended to be extensible, and if I were making an extensible system, I would certainly be using the 10-foot pipes. This system can be extended by using flexible couplers between each 10-foot section, and it's hard to say just how far you could carry this out, but certainly I would think 40 or 50 feet would not be impossible. That would have some effect on your input hose size, but other than that, I think the fluid would circulate pretty well through these things. These pipes are set up for 2-inch net pots, and that's what the big holes are. Each of these 5-foot pipes will take 6 plants. The holes in this system are 9 inches apart, whereas in some commercial systems you find 8-inch holes. But I noticed with those systems, the plants, like lettuce plants, sometimes really kind of crowd each other because they get so big in a hydroponic system. I spent quite a bit of time fiddling with the math on how many holes to put in these pipes, and eventually came down to the figure I used. The center of the first plant hole in these pipes, right there, is at 3 inches from the end of the pipe, and you'll see why when I start talking about the end caps. Also on each pipe there is a 1/2-inch hole which will be used for putting water into the system. These pieces of 1x4 are going to be used to connect those pipes together. I didn't need to drill these holes. These holes mark the centers of the different pipes, so they're 9 inches apart. And then these outside holes are the same distance as the outside diameter of the pipe. I'm going to use these 18-inch zip ties to connect the pipes to these boards. Also, these boards have a little 1/4-inch hole here at each end. And the idea there was that in addition to leveling the pipes from end to end, I was going to level them from side to side. I don't know if that's going to be necessary, but if it is, then I will have these things available to do that. These are Fernco flex caps, which I got at Home Depot for about $4 each. These are going to be used for the ends of the tubes. These here are going to be used at the inlet end, so they will be solid, and these are going to be used at the outlet, and you can see that I have 1/2-inch elbows installed in each of these cups here. And the reason for doing this is that I don't have to glue these things on, which means that I can easily take apart the system for maintenance or for expanding the system lengthwise. And also, this means that, for instance, you can open it up now and then and run some peroxide, 1% peroxide through this to clear out the algae if there is any. Now the main idea here with these elbows is that this is going to borrow some features from the Kratky approach, which is that there will be a reservoir of water at the bottom of the tubes. And the reason for that is to enhance growth. I'm a little bit suspicious about the NFT method in terms of plants getting as much water as they want, but also this is an insurance policy against failures of the pump and failures of the power system. When I get this set up, it's going to be basically a manual system, and you'll see that this particular thing can be run by hand if necessary, or by, if you want to do that intentionally. With the reservoir on the bottom, the plants will be sustained if there is no power. Also, because this cap has a clamp ring on it, and I can change the position of this so that I can change the depth of the water in the tube. I've noticed with some of my starts that it's sometimes a little bit hard to get the roots to grow down below the bottom of the net cup. So perhaps there will be a nursery channel where the water level will be somewhat high so that it touches the bottom of the net cups and encourages the plants to grow down into the nutrient solution. And then later on, you can lower the level somewhat to keep the net cups out of the water. After I'd gone a long ways in building this system, I found that General Hydroponics makes an off-the-shelf system, their AeroFlow system, which uses these same principles. And I think that my next system may be one of those AeroFlow systems to test it out. And if you were, going to do something like this, it's a choice. Do you want to have the pleasure of making it yourself and the struggles, or do you want to buy it off the shelf? The AeroFlow 30 costs about $500, but you have to pay motor freight shipping, so that if you don't have a dealer nearby, you may find that a somewhat expensive option. In the past, somebody once commented to me about, if I had had $1,000, I could have done this or done that. What I'm thinking at this point is that if you have $1,000 or less to spend on materials, you can build a fairly large hydroponic system that can grow more than you and your family and friends can eat, which means that this could be an income-producing project. Now, one thing I found in making these couplings fit is that I started by drilling a 1/2-inch hole from the backside using a wood bit, and I found I couldn't get the couplings in, and then I used a conical drill, somewhat like this. Let's see, this is a conical. Yeah, you can see the conical section on this from the front to open up the hole enough to get the fitting in. If you look at some of the NFT systems, you will see that they don't go to this bother of having couplings which will lead to hoses down into the reservoir. And if you were building a large system, you could probably just let the water drip out the end and it would fall off the sharp edge here, drain into a gutter or whatever it was you were using to collect. But this system is going to have a reservoir made from a 5-gallon bucket, so I am going to run 1/2-inch hoses down into the bucket to return the water.